Chili, grab your strongest tea and sit down, because the toxic king is officially trying to rebrand, and Steve Harvey is absolutely not having it. Is it a midlife crisis, or is Future just tired of paying for all those lawyers? We all saw that viral clip, right? Future sitting there, looking all vulnerable, talking about how he never saw his mama get flowers and how he lacked a male role model to show him how to open a door for a woman. I mean, is he for real? You're 40 years old, sir. At what point do we stop blaming our childhood and start taking responsibility for our own mess? But here is the real kicker. Word on the street is that Steve Harvey has finally reached his breaking point. Allegedly, Steve isn't just annoyed, he's disgusted. He saw firsthand what Future did to his princess, Lori Harvey, and is ready to let the world know that this new "I've changed" narrative is nothing but a calculated PR stunt to save a dying image. Did Future really play psychological games with Lori? Did he try to break her spirit just like he allegedly did with his 9 baby mamas? Steve is reportedly saying that Future's inability to love isn't a trauma, it's a choice. Tonight, we are pulling back the velvet curtain on the Harvey household. We're looking at the leaked tensions, the secret warnings Marjorie gave Lori, and the reason why Steve thinks Future is the most dangerous man in Hollywood. Is Future a victim of his past, or is he just a master manipulator looking for his next target? Grab your popcorn, because this investigative deep dive is about to get messy. You won't believe what Steve allegedly found in Lori's phone during that relationship. The investigative files are officially open and the streets are talking louder than ever about the supposed transformation of the industry's most notorious bachelor. For years we have watched Future navigate the entertainment world like a ghost in the night, leaving a trail of broken hearts and legal documents in his wake. But the narrative shifted recently when he sat down for that now infamous interview where he traded his designer sunglasses for a look of forced sincerity. He started talking about the lack of flowers in his mother's house and the absence of a father figure to guide his hand in the art of romance. To the casual viewer, it looked like a man finally facing his demons, but to an industry veteran like Steve Harvey, it looked like a carefully scripted scene from a low-budget movie. The history between the Harvey family and Future is not just a footnote in celebrity gossip, it is a full-blown saga of clashing ideologies. On one hand you have Steve Harvey, a man who has built a multi-million-dollar empire telling women how to protect their hearts and demand respect. On the other hand you have Future, a man who has turned toxic behavior into a global brand and a lucrative music career. When these two worlds collided through Lori Harvey, it was like watching a slow-motion train wreck that everyone saw coming except for the people involved. Steve has remained mostly silent for years out of respect for his daughter's privacy, but sources close to the family say the dam has finally broken. The disapproval from the Harvey household was present from day one, and it was not just about the music. We all remember Marjorie Harvey's strict warning about avoiding rappers and athletes because she knew exactly what kind of lifestyle came with that territory. But Lori, being young and independent, decided to test the waters with the king of the industry himself. What followed was a whirlwind of private jets and expensive gifts that masked a much darker reality of psychological control. Allegedly, Steve witnessed Future using the same emotional tactics he had perfected with his previous partners, attempting to isolate Lori from the protective circle of her family. Future has always operated with a specific playbook that involves a heavy dose of love bombing followed by sudden coldness. This back-and-forth dynamic is designed to keep a woman off balance and constantly seeking validation from him. Insiders claim that Steve noticed his daughter becoming more withdrawn during the height of the relationship. The man who usually commands the room with his loud suits and boisterous laughter was reportedly simmering with a quiet rage as he watched his daughter fall for the oldest tricks in the book. Steve knew that Future did not just want Lori for her beauty, he wanted the Harvey name to validate his own image. The irony of the situation is that Future is now using the exact same themes of family and respect to fix his reputation. By claiming that he never saw his mother receive flowers, he is trying to paint himself as a product of his environment rather than a conscious actor in his own life. But the investigative trail shows a pattern that contradicts this sudden surge of self-awareness. While he was allegedly ignoring Lori's emotional needs, he was also entangled in multiple legal battles with the women who came before her. The timing of his sudden realization about male role models is suspicious to say the least, especially since he is currently facing new pressure regarding his parental responsibilities. Steve Harvey is a man who values legacy, and the way Future handles his children was the biggest red flag of all. You cannot claim to be learning how to love while you are simultaneously fighting your own flesh and blood in court over basic necessities. Allegedly, Steve found it laughable that a man with nearly 10 children by nearly 10 different women could suddenly claim to be a student of romance. The Harvey brand is built on the idea of the provider and the protector, and in Steve's eyes, Future is the antithesis of those values. The tension reached a boiling point when Future began making passive-aggressive comments in his songs about the men Laurie dated after him. The psychological games did not stop when the relationship ended. Future has a habit of marking his territory even after he has moved on to the next victim. When Laurie moved on to Michael B. Jordan, a man Steve actually respected, the contrast was too much for Future to handle. He went from being the man in charge to being the ex-boyfriend who was being compared to a literal Hollywood superhero. This is when the mask really started to slip and the petty lyrics started to fly. Steve reportedly saw this as a sign of extreme insecurity, proving that all the talk about being a boss was just a facade for a man who cannot. The investigative findings suggest that Future tried to control the narrative of their breakup by making it seem like he was the one who walked away. But those who were in the room say Laurie was the one who realized that no amount of private jets could compensate for a lack of genuine character. Steve was reportedly the one who encouraged her to see the situation for what it was. He did not have to say much because Future's actions were doing all the talking. The way he treated his previous partners was a roadmap of what Laurie's future would look like if she stayed. Steve was not just a protective father, he was a strategic advisor who knew that his daughter's brand was being tarnished by the association. Now that Future is trying to flip the script and play the victim of his own upbringing, the public is divided. Some people want to believe in the possibility of change while others see the cold hard facts. The fact is that Future has spent more time in courtrooms than he has in therapy. The fact is that he continues to make headlines for what he does not do for his children rather than what he does for the community. Steve Harvey's alleged disgust is rooted in the reality that talk is cheap but child support and respect are expensive. He sees right through the soft lighting of the interviews and the curated social media posts. As we look deeper into the fallout of the Laurie Harvey era, it becomes clear that this was more than just a celebrity fling. It was a battle for the soul of a young woman's reputation. Future wanted to turn Laurie into another chapter in his book of conquests, while Steve wanted to ensure she remained the author of her own story. The psychological toll of dating a man like Future cannot be underestimated. It involves a constant cycle of checking phones, wondering about other women, and dealing with the public embarrassment of his past constantly resurfacing. Steve saw his daughter navigating this minefield and decided that enough was enough. The rumors of a secret meeting between Steve and Future have been circulating for months. While neither side will confirm it officially, sources say that Steve laid down the law in a way that only a man from West Virginia could. He allegedly told Future that the Harvey family is not a playground and that Laurie is not a pawn in his game of musical chairs. This confrontation is what many believe led to the eventual cooling off of the relationship and the subsequent shade thrown in Future's music. Future realized he could not intimidate a man who had seen it all and done it all long before Future even had his first hit record. The narrative of the lack of a male role model is a convenient shield, but it falls apart when you look at the resources Future has at his disposal. He has the money for the best mentors, the best books, and the best therapists in the world. Yet he chooses to use his platform to promote a lifestyle that leaves women feeling used and discarded. Steve Harvey sees this as a moral failing rather than a social one. He believes that at some point a man has to stop looking in the rearview mirror at his childhood and start looking in the mirror at the man he has become. The Toxic King title was not given to him by mistake, it was earned through years of consistent behavior. As we transition into the actual breakdown of the scandal, we have to look at the leaked reports that suggest things were even worse behind closed doors. It was not just about the lack of flowers or the missed birthdays. It was about a systematic attempt to undermine Laurie's confidence so that she would feel lucky to be with him. This is a classic move in the Narcissist Handbook, and Steve Harvey, who has interviewed thousands of people on his show, knew exactly what he was looking at. He recognized the patterns of a man who loves the chase but hates the responsibility of the catch. The investigative team has uncovered that during the height of the Laurie and Future romance, there were several anonymous tips sent to the Harvey camp regarding Future's extracurricular activities. While he was appearing in family photos and attending events, he was allegedly still maintaining his old habits in the shadows. This double life is what ultimately led to the final breakdown of trust. Steve was reportedly the one who presented the evidence to Lori, forcing her to make a choice between her future and her dignity. The fallout was swift and it was permanent, which explains why Future is still so bothered to this day. The story of Steve Harvey and Future is a cautionary tale about what happens when a father who knows the game meets a man who is still playing it. Steve has spent his life learning from his own mistakes, and he wanted to save his daughter from making the same ones. The current attempt by Future to rebrand himself as a sensitive soul is a direct response to the fact that women like Lori Harvey are no longer interested in the toxic routine. They want substance, they want stability, and they want a man who does not need a PR team to explain why he is a decent human being. The investigation continues as we move into the specifics of the leaked documents and the reactions from the inner circle. The Harvey family has tightened their ranks, but the whispers are getting louder. Steve is not just speaking for himself, he is speaking for every father who has watched a toxic individual try to manipulate their child. The battle for the truth is just beginning, and the toxic king might find that his crown is much heavier than he anticipated now that the light is being shined on his darkest secrets. This concludes the first segment of our deep dive into the Harvey versus Future war of words and the reality of the changed man narrative. The deep dive into the breakdown of the scandal reveals a web of hidden agendas and leaked reports that paint a much more calculated picture than a simple celebrity breakup. According to investigative findings from sources close to the production of the Harvey family inner circle, the lavish lifestyle Future presented to Lori was merely a golden cage designed to distract from a lack of emotional depth. Reports suggest that for every high-end handbag or private jet flight, there was a corresponding moment of coldness or a calculated move to keep Lori guessing about the status of their commitment. This is the abuse of power that Steve Harvey reportedly found the most repulsive because it used financial wealth to mask a complete bankruptcy of character. Anonymous insiders have leaked details of a supposed investigation that the Harvey camp conducted during the peak of the romance. These reports indicate that Steve was not just relying on gut feeling but was actually receiving dossiers regarding Future's ongoing interactions with his various legal teams and former partners. The findings were staggering, showing a man who was allegedly spending millions on legal fees to avoid responsibility while simultaneously spending millions on jewelry to maintain a facade of success. This corruption of the idea of a provider is what fueled Steve's reported disgust, because in his world a real man handles his home before he handles the club. The public reactions to these leaked sentiments have been explosive, with social media divided between those who worship the toxic aesthetic and those who see through the smoke and mirrors. Imaginary quotes from high-level industry insiders suggest that Future was warned multiple times that the Harvey family was not a typical target for his games. One source allegedly stated that Steve Harvey views his daughter's reputation as $1 billion asset, and any man who threatens to tarnish that asset is going to face a level of opposition they have never experienced in the music industry. This is where the psychological warfare really began to take a toll on everyone involved. As the breakdown continues, we look at the exaggerated details of the corruption within the toxic king inner circle. Leaked documents allegedly show that Future has a dedicated team whose only job is to manage the fallout from his various relationships. This team is tasked with silencing rumors and creating the very PR narratives we are seeing now about his lack of male role models. This is not just a man talking from the heart, it is a corporation protecting its main product. Steve Harvey reportedly found it laughable that a man would need a professional team to help him appear like a decent human being for an interview. The investigation has uncovered that during the time Lori was dating Future, there were several instances of lavish spending that were actually strategic placements for brand deals. This suggests that even the romance was being used as a tool for financial gain and career leverage. Anonymous sources claim that Future was using Lori's high fashion status to gain access to circles that usually shunned rappers with his reputation. When Steve realized that his daughter was being used as a social ladder, it was the final straw. He reportedly told Lori that she was the prize and that she should never allow a man to use her light to hide his own shadows. Public sentiment shifted further when reports surfaced about the way Future allegedly spoke about the Harvey family behind closed doors. While he was playing the part of the respectful suitor in public, leaked audio and witness statements suggest he was mocking Steve's relationship advice to his friends. He reportedly viewed Steve's act like a lady philosophy as a joke and felt that he could outsmart the veteran comedian. This arrogance is what eventually led to his downfall within that circle, because Steve has built a career on outsmarting people who think they are the smartest person in the room. The breakdown of the scandal also includes the alleged psychological tactics used to keep the baby mamas at bay while he was pursuing Lori. Reports suggest that Future promised several of his exes that the Lori situation was just for publicity and that his heart remained with his family. This level of double-dealing is what Steve Harvey reportedly called corrupt to the core. To Steve, a man is only as good as his word, and Future's word appeared to be a moving target depending on who he was talking to. The corruption of trust within these relationships is the real investigative story that the mainstream media often ignores. Leaked emails from within the Harvey organization show a high level of concern regarding the future effect on Lori's brand. There was a fear that her association with such a volatile figure would cost her major contracts with luxury brands who value family-friendly images. Steve was allegedly the one who spearheaded the effort to distance Lori from the rapper before any permanent damage could be done. He knew that in the world of high-stakes business, your associations are your currency, and Future was a currency that was rapidly devaluing due to his own personal choices. The investigative findings also touch on the flowers narrative that Future is currently pushing. Critics and public commentators have pointed out that while he complains about his mother not getting flowers, he has the financial means to buy a flower shop for every woman he has ever known. The fact that he chooses to use this as an excuse for his behavior in 2026 is seen by many as a slap in the face to people who actually grew up in struggle and still manage to treat people with respect. Steve Harvey reportedly views this as a classic case of a man trying to buy sympathy because he can no longer buy silence. Anonymous sources have also described the lavish parties Future threw during this era as a front for even more scandalous behavior. These parties were allegedly filled with corruption and excess that went far beyond what was reported in the tabloids. While Lori was being portrayed as the leading lady, there were supposedly countless other subplots happening in the background that would make any father's skin crawl. Steve was reportedly made aware of these events through his extensive network of security and industry connections, leading to a massive confrontation that changed the trajectory of the relationship forever. The public reaction to the changed man narrative has been a mix of sarcasm and genuine anger. Many fans are calling out the hypocrisy of a man who makes millions off of toxic lyrics now wanting to be seen as a victim of his own success. The sarcasm is at an all-time high, with memes circulating about Future discovering respect at age 40 just in time for his next press run. Steve Harvey has reportedly enjoyed some of these memes, seeing them as a sign that the public is finally waking up to the reality that he saw years ago. He believes that the truth doesn't need a publicist, but a lie needs a whole army. Further investigation into the abuse of power reveals that Future allegedly used his influence to try and control what Lori's friends said about him. He reportedly wanted to maintain an image of being the perfect. In reality, he was struggling to keep his past from colliding with his present. This level of manipulation is what Steve Harvey called pure BS, because it focused on appearance rather than essence. Steve has always preached that a man's character is what he does when no one is watching, but Future seemed obsessed with what everyone was watching on Instagram. The fallout from these leaked investigative findings has started to affect Future's professional standing. There are whispers of major brands pulling back from potential collaborations because the Toxic King label is becoming too heavy to carry. While he tries to pivot to a more soulful image, the weight of his past actions is creating a financial crisis within his own camp. Resignations of key staff members who are tired of managing his personal drama have added fuel to the fire. Steve Harvey reportedly sees this as the natural consequence of building a house on sand. Public reactions have also focused on the role of the male role model that Future claims to have lacked. Many point to the fact that Steve Harvey himself offered to be a mentor of sorts if Future was willing to change his ways. But according to reports, Future was too caught up in his own hype to listen to a man who had actually mastered the game of life. This missed opportunity for genuine growth is what makes the current apology tour feel so hollow to the Harvey family. They gave him a chance to step up and he chose to step out. The investigative report concludes this section by highlighting the sheer scale of the deception. It was not just a relationship, but a multi-layered campaign to see who could control the narrative. Future wanted to be the man who tamed the Harvey princess, while Steve wanted to be the man who protected the Harvey legacy. In the end, Steve's investigative instincts proved correct as the changed man narrative began to crumble under the weight of new lawsuits and old habits. The transition into the final consequences of this scandal shows that the bill is finally coming due for the rapper. As we move into the final stage of this saga, we have to look at the legal and financial walls closing in. The investigations are no longer just social, they are becoming official. The public backlash has reached a fever pitch, and the hypothetical resignations of the past are becoming the reality of the present. Steve Harvey is reportedly sitting back with a cigar, watching the cards fall exactly where he predicted they would. The toxic king is finding out that in the real world outside of the recording studio, your past always catches up to you, and no amount of talk about flowers can change the harvest you have planted. The legal and professional walls are now closing in on the toxic king, with a force that even his high-priced legal team cannot seem to deflect. We are witnessing a total collapse of the carefully curated shadow empire that Future has operated within for over a decade. Investigative findings suggest that the fallout from his failed relationship with Lori Harvey was merely the catalyst for a much larger series of government probes into his financial dealings and child support structures. Sources indicate that a multi-state investigation has been launched into the alleged hiding of assets and the use of shell companies to minimize the reported income used for calculating parental obligations. This financial crisis is not just a personal headache for the rapper. It is becoming a systemic failure that has led to the hypothetical resignation of his long-term business manager. Rumors are swirling that the inner circle is jumping ship because they see the writing on the wall. Steve Harvey has reportedly been in contact with some of these high-level whistleblowers who are tired of the corruption and the constant manipulation of the legal system. The fallout is massive, and for the first time in his career, Future is facing a reality where his chart-topping hits cannot bail him out of a courtroom. The public backlash has moved from social media memes to organized protests by advocacy groups demanding accountability for the psychological games he has played with women for years. These groups are citing the leaked reports regarding his treatment of Lori Harvey as a prime example of why he needs to be held to a higher standard. There is a growing movement to boycott his upcoming projects until he provides more than just a scripted apology about his childhood. The pressure is mounting, and the industry is watching closely to see if his label will finally distance itself from the controversy. Steve Harvey is reportedly watching this public collapse with a sense of grim satisfaction, not because he hates the man, but because he believes in the law of sowing and reaping. Steve has allegedly told his close associates that Future is currently reaping a harvest of toxicity that he planted years ago. The hypothetical probes into his toxic king brand are revealing that it wasn't just a gimmick for the music. It was a blueprint for how he operated in every facet of his life. The financial consequences are estimated to be in the tens of millions as lawsuits continue to pile up from various directions. The investigative files also point to a potential federal audit of his tour earnings and international business ventures. Anonymous sources claim that there are discrepancies in how the hush money mentioned by his baby mamas was documented and taxed. If these allegations prove to be true, Future could be facing more than just a PR nightmare. He could be facing serious time behind bars for financial crimes. This is the level of escalation that Steve Harvey warned about when he told Lori that fast money often leads to a slow walk to the courthouse. The psychological fallout for Future is also becoming apparent as he continues his desperate attempts to gain sympathy. Public reactions to his latest emotional outbursts have been overwhelmingly negative, with people pointing out that real healing happens in private, not in front of a camera with a lighting crew. The sarcasm from the public is biting, with many asking if he will blame his lack of a male role model for his potential tax evasion too. The CR gap has become an ocean, and there is no bridge in sight for the rapper to cross back into the public's good graces. In the midst of this turmoil, Steve Harvey has reportedly intensified his efforts to protect Lori from any further association with the drama. He has allegedly utilized his own legal team to ensure that Future's name is scrubbed from any upcoming Harvey family projects or historical archives. This damnatio memoriae is the ultimate consequence for a man who lives for fame and recognition. To be erased by a man as powerful as Steve Harvey is a professional death sentence in certain elite circles that Future once fought so hard to enter. The investigation has also uncovered that several of Future's current brand partners are in the middle of emergency meetings to discuss morality clauses in his contracts. The potential fallout from the Lori Harvey scandal and the subsequent legal probes has made him a liability that no luxury brand wants to touch. We are talking about a total financial freeze that could leave the rapper struggling to maintain the lavish lifestyle he used to control the women in his life. The irony of the toxic king losing his treasury is not lost on the public. Anonymous reports from within the music industry suggest that even his peers are starting to turn their backs. The era of the toxic rapper is being replaced by a demand for authenticity and responsibility, leaving Future as a relic of a bygone era. His peers who once collaborated with him are now allegedly refusing to clear verses or appear in videos because they don't want to be caught in the blast radius of his impending legal collapse. This social isolation is perhaps the most painful consequence for a man who built his identity on being the leader of the pack. The hypothetical probes into his personal life are also shedding light on the anonymous baby mama who has recently stepped forward with even more shocking allegations of corruption. This new evidence suggests that Future attempted to use his industry connections to blacklist the mothers of his children from finding employment. This level of systemic abuse of power is what has triggered the latest round of investigations. Steve Harvey is reportedly disgusted but not surprised, noting that a man who doesn't respect the mother of his child will never respect any woman. As the fallout continues, we are seeing the emergence of a survivors' circle consisting of the women Future has wronged. They are reportedly sharing resources and legal strategies to ensure that he can no longer play one against the other. This unity is the one thing Future never anticipated. He thrived on the chaos and the division of the women in his life, but now that they are standing together, his house of cards is falling. Steve Harvey has allegedly offered his support to these efforts, viewing it as a necessary step for justice and closure. The financial crisis within Future's camp is becoming so severe that there are reports of him having to sell off portions of his music catalogue just to keep up with the legal fees. This is the ultimate loss for an artist, to lose the rights to your own voice because of the choices you made in your private life. Steve Harvey, a man who owns his own media empire, knows the value of ownership and sees this as the final sign of a failed strategy. You cannot be a boss when you are selling your legacy to pay for your mistakes. The investigative report concludes with the realization that Future's story is no longer about music. It is a legal and moral cautionary tale. The trauma narrative was a last-ditch effort to save a sinking ship, but the water was already too high. The public has seen the receipts, the legal documents, and the broken lives left in his wake. Steve Harvey's silence has been his loudest statement, proving that you don't need to shout when the truth is doing all the work for you. The toxic king is facing a cold winter, and no amount of flowers can change the climate of accountability. Public reactions continue to pour in as people realize the depth of the deception. The sarcasm remains, but it is now tempered with a sense of relief that the truth is finally out. The Harvey family has moved on, stronger and more united than ever, while Future is left to deal with the consequences of a life lived in the shadows. The hypothetical resignations and the very real probes have created a new reality for the rapper, one where he is just another man facing the music he composed himself. The final fallout is still being calculated, but one thing is certain, the brand of the toxic king is dead. Whether Future can actually become the changed man he claims to be remains to be seen, but the world is no longer taking him at his word. He will have to prove it through years of consistent action, away from the cameras and the PR teams. Steve Harvey is reportedly done talking. He's just sitting back and watching the finale of a show he predicted from the very first episode. Chilly, that was a lot to process. The toxic king is officially in the hot seat, and the seat is getting hotter by the second. But I want to hear from you, the real investigators in the comments. Do you think Future is actually capable of changing, or is Steve Harvey right to suspect that this is all just a massive cover-up for his legal and financial disasters? Is the trauma excuse the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card, or are we witnessing the final days of a celebrity who thought he was untouchable? And what about the Harvey family? Did Steve handle this like a boss, or was he a little too petty? Don't hold back. Drop your thoughts, your theories, and your receipts in the comment section below. I want to see the debate of the century down there. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the messy reality behind the headlines, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are exposing the truths that Hollywood tries to keep buried, and you do not want to miss what we have coming next. Turn on those notifications, and I'll see you in the next investigation. Stay woke.